10:40 p.m. 22:40 Israel Standard Time. Daf Yomi, Tractate Makos, page 13b. Top of the page is the words Yehoshua, Makos, Yehoshua are included in the category of those liable to receive 40 lashes. It was going on those who are liable to receive lashes, and those who are liable, and both those who are liable to receive karet and those who are liable to be executed with the court imposed death penalty are included in the category for those liable to receive 40 lashes for violating the Torah principle. This is the statement of Yehoshua. Akiva Omer, Chayvi Krisos Yeshna Echala Makos Arbaim Sheim Asu Tshuva Bezdin Shel Mala Moklin Lahen Chayvi Misos Bezdin Eino Bichlal Makos Arbaim Sheim Asu Tshuva Ein Bezdin Shel Mata Mochalin Lahen. Okay. Rabbi Akiva says those liable to receive karet are included in the category of those liable to receive 40 lashes, because if they repented, the heavenly court absolved them of the punishment of karet. Therefore, karet does not absolve them from the punishment of lashes. Those liable to be executed with court-imposed death penalties are not included in the category of those liable to receive 40 lashes, as even if they repented, the earthly court does not absolve them of execution, and one is not punished by the court twice for performing the same transgression. Weiter, Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, Chai bechrisos bekal hayu v'laman yatzis bekares bechoisoi laduno bechois v'laman ma'alogis. Rabbi Yitzchak says that like those liable to be executed, those liable to receive karet are not flogged. Those liable to receive karet for incest were included in the generalization. For anyone who performs any of these abominations, the souls who do so shall be excised from among their people. Leviticus 18:29. Included in that category is one who engages in intercourse with a sister. And why then did the halakha of karet with regard to intercourse with one's sister emerge from the generalization and receive specific mention? And a man who takes a sister, and they shall be excised from before the eyes of the children of their people. Leviticus 20:17. It is in order to sentence one who engages in intercourse with his sister with karet and not with lashes. This is the source for the opinion that those liable to receive karet are not flogged. My time with Rabbi Yishmael, Dichtiv im lo tishma lasos. It's called Divrei HaTorah Zos. Luchasiv, V'ifli Hashem, it's called Makosecha, Hafla Zo, En Yodea Mahi, Keshu Omer, V'hipilo HaShofet, V'hikal Lifanav, Haviomer, Hafla Zo Malkasiv, Im lo tishma lasos it kol V'gomer. The Gemara elaborates what is the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, who holds that even those liable to be executed are liable to receive lashes. It is as it is written, if you will not observe to perform all the matters of this Torah, Deuteronomy 28:58, and it is written immediately thereafter with regard to the punishment of one who violates that verse, and God will make your plagues wondrous. The Hifla, Deuteronomy 28:59. The sages interpret that verse, this term hafla'ah. I do not know what its meaning is. When the verse states concerning those liable to receive lashes, and the judge shall cause him to lie down, bihipi lo, and to be beaten before him. Deuteronomy 25:2. You must say that this hafla'ah is a term referring to lashes, and it is written that this hafla'ah is administered in any case where one does not fulfill the verse, if you will not observe to perform all the matters of this Torah, including those prohibitions punishable by death. Ihachi chayave aseh nami im lo tishmar. Ksiv v'yechid rabbanet Rabbi Avin Amar Rabbi Ilahi de Amar Avin Amar Mar Rabbi Avin Amar Rabbi Ilahi Kol Makom Shneimar Hishamer Pen Ve'al Eino Ela Lo Ta'aseh. The Gemara objects, if so, and Rabbi Yishmael interprets the verse in that manner, those liable for failing to perform positive mitzvot should also be flogged, as those mitzvot too are included in all the matters of this Torah. The Gemara answers, positive mitzvot are not included in this phrase because if you will not observe, it is written, and this is in accordance with the principle that Rabbi Avin says, that Rabbi Ilahi says, as Rabbi Avin says that Rabbi Ilahi says, wherever it is stated in the Torah the terms observe, lest, or do not, it is nothing other than a prohibition, since in this verse, if you will not observe is written, only those who violate prohibitions are liable to receive lashes. Ihachi lav she'im boy maisenami lashes. The Gemara objects, if so, one should also be flogged for violating a prohibition that does not involve an action. But the halacha is that one is not flogged for in that case. The Gemara rejects that contention. If you will not observe to perform it is written, and in violating a prohibition that does not involve an action, one performed no action. Lav shenitigla senami dumia delav de chasima. The Gemara objects, one should also be flogged for violating a prohibition that entails fulfillment of a positive mitzvah, where the Torah provides the means to rectify the transgression through the performance of a positive mitzvah, as it does involve an action. Yet the halacha is that one is not flogged for violating that type of prohibition. The Gemara rejects that contention. One is not flogged in that case because lashes are administered only for a violation of prohibitions similar to the prohibition of muzzling an ox while it is threshing grain. See Deuteronomy 25 verse 4. The Torah juxtaposed that the prohibition to the halachot of lashes in the same passage from which it is derived that lashes are administered only for violations similar to muzzling. In other words, a prohibition that does not entail fulfillment of a positive mitzvah. Hashta de'ises lahachi. The Gemara comments, now that you have arrived at this understanding, all the previous objections can also be resolved in the same manner. No lashes are administered for failure to fulfill a positive mitzvah or for violating a prohibition that does not entail an action, because one is flogged for violation only of prohibitions similar to the prohibition of muzzling, which is a prohibition and involves an action. Rabbi Akiva Ma'itayma Kedei Rishaso Mishum Risha Achas Atam Chayvo V'Iyatam Chayvo Mishum Shnei Rishayos. The Gemara continues its analysis of the opinions cited in the price. And with regard to Rabbi Akiva, what is the reason that he maintains that those liable to be executed are not liable to be flogged? Okay, as is written, and the judge shall cause him to lie down and be beaten before him according to the measure of his wickedness. Deuteronomy 25:2, from which is derived with regard to one who commits one transgression. For one evil doing you can render him liable, but you cannot render him liable for two evil doings, meaning that one cannot receive two punishments for the same act. Therefore, execution suffices, and he is not flogged. How do you mean? Misa the moment, the Makos the moment, Avo, Misa Makos, Misa Arichta. Rabbi Yishmael holds that this manner applies only with regard to one transgression, punishable by both death and monetary restitution, or punishable by both lashes and monetary restitution. But death and lashes are not considered two separate punishments. Rather, both forms of physical punishment are together considered an extended death, with the lashes followed by the execution. Rabbi Akiva, ihakli machayve krisus nami my amrit shi'im asu tshuva hashtamihat loavdi. Okay, the Gemara asks, according to Rabbi Akiva, that is so. That one does not receive two punishments for one transgression. Those who are liable to receive two karet should not be flogged. Those who are liable to receive two should be not be flogged. It's karet also should not be two here also should not be flogged. Okay. What did you say in response? That if they repented and are exempt from karet, and therefore they are flogged instead. Now, in any event, at the point when they are flogged, they have not yet done so. Does not repented. Beferish ripsa Torah chayve krisos namagus. Tigamar ena le'enai le'enecha maskifla harav abba. Barmamol ihaki chayve mitzvos best in nami nigmar me'eno le'enecha. Rabbi Bahu says the Torah explicitly included with regards to lashes those liable to receive karet, and it is derived by means of a verbal analogy, and they shall be excised by nikra too, right? Before the eyes of the people, children of the people. Leviticus 20:17, from 40 he shall flog him, and your brother shall be dishonored before your eyes. Deuteronomy 25:3. Rabbi Abba bar Bamel objects to this. If so, the inclusion of those liable to be executed with court-imposed death penalties should also be learned by means of verbal analogy. If from the eyes the assembly was performed unwittingly, Numbers 15:24 stated with regard to idol worship, for which one is liable to be executed. From before your eyes, stated with regard to lashes, and on that basis one should derive that those liable to be executed with court-imposed penalty should also be flogged. Okay. Wow. Okay. We're starting the mission, I think, right? Not sure if I read this last part here. I think I did, but I'll read it again anyway. Starting from the words "my nafkamina," Gemara asks. I know for sure I read over that. Let's see here. All right, we'll start from my nafkamina. Gemara asks, what is the significance? The difference between them that prevents derivation by means of verbal analogy. But didn't the school of Yishmael teach that a verbal analogy with regard to leprosy houses? This verse states, "And the priest shall return Yeshav on the seventh day," Leviticus 14:39. And another verse with regard to the priest's visit 7 days later states, "And the priest shall come and look," Leviticus 14:14. this returning and this coming have the same meaning, and one can therefore derive by verbal analogy that the halacha that applies if leprosy had spread at the conclusion of the first week applies that if it had spread again by the end of the following week, obviously the less pronounced difference between should not prevent the teaching of a verbal analogy. And furthermore, why do not derive by means of verbal analogy written with regard to the court-imposed death penalties from le'ene written with regard to karet, since those two terms are more similar, just as verbal analogy of le'ene from le'enecha was derived. Kabbaleh Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yitzchak Kedei Lushas Mishum Mishus Achaz Ata Chayvo Yata Chayvo Mishum Shtei Shayos Mishus Amisoa Lebet Din Hakatuv Medaber. The Gemara answers, Rabbi Shmuel or Rabbi Yitzchak received a tradition from Rabbi Abahu that the reason for the season, those liable to receive the karet are flogged, it's not because it's not considered two premiums, there's one transgression. That is when the verse states, according to the measure of his wickedness, Deuteronomy 25 verse 2, from which is derived, for one evil doing you can render him liable, but you cannot render him liable for two evil doings. The verse is speaking with regard to an evil doing that is given the jurisdiction of the court, not to an act of wickedness punishable at the hand of heaven. Okay, Rava says, he's Rubei Lekatolo. Okay, Kuli Almalo Pligi de Ein Loke Umes, Ki Pligi de Asro Below Edim, Bishmol Savar Lav Shinitin, Lazarus Misa Bezdin, Belokin Alav, Rehud Omer, Ahipater I'm sorry. Rabbi Akiva Omer La Shenita Azara Mitas Bezdin in Lokin Alav. Okay, that was a long piece. Continue. Rabbi says with regard to this dispute between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, if the witnesses or other onlookers forewarned him that if he performs a transgression he will be sentenced to death, everyone, Rabbi Shmuel agrees that he is not flogged. He's not both flogged and executed. When they disagree, it is in a case where they forewarned him that he will be sentenced to lashes. Rabbi Yishmael maintains that with regard to prohibition in the Torah that potentially serves as a mandate for court-imposed capital punishment, one is flogged for its violation in a case where there is no actual death penalty. Rabbi Akiva maintains that with regard to a prohibition in the Torah that potentially serves as a mandate for court-imposed capital punishment, one is not flogged for its violation, even if no death penalty is imposed, as that prohibition is punishable only by death. Rabbi Akiva. Ihakim Mechai B'Krisus Nami Lav Shnein Lazarus Karazu Amar Le'er Mordechai Ravashi Hachi Amar Avimi Mihagronia Mishmei Derava Chai Krisos Lo Tzrichi Hatra'a Shehare Pesach Umila Anash Afal Pi Shelo Yehizir. Okay. The Gemara asks, and according to Rabbi Akiva, if so, with regard to those liable to receive karet as well, they violated a prohibition in the Torah that serves as a mandate for karet and not for lashes. Mordechai says, Ashi, this is Daf Yomi from Hagronia. Says Rava, those liable to receive karet do not require forewarning, as in the case of one who fails to fulfill the positive mitzvot of the paschal offering and the circumcision. The Torah punished them with karet, even though it did not warn that it is prohibited to fail to fulfill the mitzvah. Therefore, the prohibitions written in case of punishment with karet are written to teach one that one can receive lashes for their violation, not to mandate the punishment of karet. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda v'dilma azar lekarban v'hab pesach umila deles behu azar lo ma'isi karban. The Gemara asks, but perhaps the prohibition is written concerning those liable to receive karet with regard to the liability to bring an offering for unwitting violation of the prohibition, not to teach that the transgressor will receive lashes as for a failure to fulfill the positive mitzvot of the paschal offering and in circumcision, for which there is no biblical prohibition, and one does not bring an offering. Awesome, Hainu time Shum Distakash Kol Vayhula Lavoid Zara Lavoid Zara Shav Altase Afkol Shav Altase Lafuki Hanach Dekum Asay. Okay. The Gemara rejects that suggestion there with regard to a people, with regard to the paschal offering and circumcision. That is not the reason that one does not bring an offering. Rather, it is due to the fact that all the mitzvot in the entire Torah, whose unwitting violation requires the transgressor to bring a sin offering, are juxtaposed to and likened to idol worship. Just as idol worship is a prohibition about which the Torah commands, sit and do not perform the transgression, and one who unwittingly performs the transgression is liable to bring a sin offering. So too, with regard to any prohibition about which the Torah commands, sit and do not perform the transgression. One who unwittingly performs the transgression is liable to bring a sin offering. This serves to exclude those mitzvot of the paschal offering and circumcision with which the Torah commands. Arise and perform the mitzvah, and one violates the mitzvah by refraining from action. In those cases, one who unwittingly fails to perform one of these mitzvot is not liable to bring a sin offering. Wow. Okay, next. Ravina Omar. Ravina says, actually, the reason Rabbi Akiva rules that those liable to receive karet are flogged is, stay tuned for the next daf.